Hello, today is the 16th of December 2023. As always, we'll do our disclaimer. We'll go over our calls and make some predictions. And also, I want to take a look at the long-term analysis today. Normally, we do this at the end of the weekend and do the major analysis at the year end, but we could have a major high here, so I want to push things up a little bit and go over the longer term picture today instead of waiting until year's end. Well, this is my trading plan for Monday. It's actually my trading plan for longer than that. Just remember, my plans can fail, my calls can be wrong, and any trade you make should be made at your own risk. Friday we had the pattern with the early high, and Monday's pattern should also have the early high. I said that we should trade lower even if we didn't close lower. We did trade lower. It's not as low as I thought we were going to be, but at least we did trade lower. We just closed essentially unchanged. Down 0.36 is essentially unchanged. Normally when we close essentially unchanged, I just repeat my last prediction. I think we're close to a top in this area. Well, during the day, MEJT said ultimately higher price would print, which they did. It gave an optional lower target of undercutting this line, which we did. We got the minimum price target immediately. That's actually more than the minimum. You didn't have to go higher than that, but we did. It's not too surprising if you go a little bit over the minimum, even though that's clearly more than the minimum. There was a buy signal and an ultimate buy signal in the afternoon. That's pretty much the minimum there, but again, we went over it even though we don't have to. We usually do. This drop was called false and prices didn't stick there. One of the things we pointed out Thursday was we put a bar completely over the upper Bollinger Band. That's not really a sell signal in and of itself, but it does show that you're kind of overextended. We're still overextended. We have 12 of the 13 bars needed for a DeMark combo sell. This doesn't have to go to completion. You don't have to print bar 13, but almost any higher print on Monday will be bar 13 because the last three bars don't have to follow all of his rules. We have a long-term target of 5,087 for this move, but it doesn't mean we're going to go there in a straight line. We just took a Fibonacci target of this move here. Fibonacci target in the other direction picked the low, so we're hoping a Fibonacci target in this direction will pick the high, and we get 5,087. This is a monthly chart. If you look at the blue numbers, we have a sequential sell signal on the monthly chart. Now these stops are they're kind of loose stops, and they are based on closing prices, not intraday prices. So in effect, I think they're kind of useless for short-term trading. But his stop, and it isn't a target, you don't have to hit it, but his stop is close essentially over 51.11, which is close enough to 50.87 for me, which shows two different methodologies are coming up with a comparable price target. Now we also had a combo sell signal, and the stop loss for that is a monthly close essentially over 49.34. But again, that doesn't mean you're going to hit it. We're in his area where it's unlikely by his work we're going to have a monthly close outside the area. Doesn't mean you have to drop. You could just consolidate, but it's a place where tend to be too overextended. We also should notice on the monthly chart how we're touching the upper Bollinger Band. Trades under or over the Bollinger, they just don't rocket more in that direction. It's kind of a resistance area. So let's remember this 5087 area, and let's go to some other charts. That's the one we showed. Well, if you take 5087 and you draw a Fibonacci grid to last October's low, you'll see how we had a direct hit on the 38.2% level, which gives some credence to the target. And you should also note we have a direct hit here on the 78.6. So we have resistance from the Fibonacci grid at this area too, but that's not the main problem. And I'm getting rid of this possible A of C here. This doesn't look like any wave B I've ever seen. I think that was the end of this major ABC, and this is the start of wave 1 up. Don't forget, a wave 2 can correct a good portion of wave 1 without changing the long-term picture. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, and it sure doesn't mean it's going to happen now. Just something to remember. Let's look at the real problem we have. We have a cluster of lower MEJT targets, and these don't stay unfilled. These at some point fill. Here's a daily chart. We have 10 lower MEJT targets from this year, and we have the lines all drawn out. Now this is an RSI. Look what happens when RSI is overextended, overbought, and you hit a MEJT target. Every one of these is associated with a market peak, and that's where we are now. RSI is as extended as it's ever been. We have a cluster of MEJT targets all at the same point. This is a condition which historically is associated with a market high. Now, what are the chances I'm wrong? What are the chances these 10 targets aren't going to print? Let's look at the long-term track record. This is where we were at the end of last year. Market was tanking. We had 10 unfilled targets. I predicted a year ago in December that most or all of these targets were going to print before this year was out. We've printed 7 out of 10, and we're pretty close to printing 9 out of 10. And if we don't print it this year, I think it'll print it next year. So that worked. We now have the opposite thing. We have too many targets in the other direction. This is the long-term track record. You can see we have only one higher unfilled ultimate target from last year. This is the record over 21 years. We can see we have 8 unfilled ultimate targets. There are 150 of them a year on average. It's soon to be 7 which haven't printed. We've never had 10 standard targets not print in the year. Twice. This is going to be the 22nd year of the system. I've had 9 twice, and what's going to be 22 years. I've had 1 7, and the majority of the time, every single target printed. It sure is maybe once every 7 to 10 years we're going to get as many targets as this left unsatisfied. It just doesn't happen all that often. And there is a wave count saying this moves over. And if we get the Fed whipsaw, which we normally get, we'll drop to around 45, 53, 75. And if we stop there, it takes us to this line, which is in the fourth wave of prior degree. So I think this is kind of a treacherous area. Of course, we could blast through. These aren't pinpoint things. But I think we're on the verge of a big drop here. I can't swear it happens right now, but I think we're pretty close. These are the patterns we should see next week. Monday's pattern has a really high regardless of where we open. Typically it's a rally day with a high on the final hour. If you fail, it's a straight line drop. December is not the time to look for a major drop in the market. There are numerous signs of a top in this area. Sentiment's at an extreme level. We have too many lower MEJT targets. The daily RSI is overbought. There's a wave count compatible with a high. We had a huge volume spike in the market. It was accompanied by a drastic reduction in new highs, and the close, which showed all the volume, didn't accomplish anything. So it isn't a big volume saying people want to bid prices up. It's big volume saying people want to get out. Now it's possible seasonal factors could delay or at least ameliorate a decline here, but we should be at or fairly close to a short-term top, and that doesn't change my bullish long-term picture at all. We've just completed an ABC which took almost 25 years or something, so we're not going to end it in 2 months. But as far as the very short-term picture, December or not, is concerned, I think we could have a sizable drop here, and if we had it, I'd use it to buy because I think we're going much higher, but I just don't like the way it looks now. It's a pattern with the early high, and that's today's call.